Good evening, everyone. I apologize for coming to you a bit later than I did yesterday. I've been on campus today for some meetings, and now I've returned home, and I am prepared to talk to you about, as promised, response. For the past 2 days, I've talked about summary with you. I hope you viewed and even reviewed those videos I provided in the announcement section of our class. I do want to talk this evening, though, about responding, since that's the second required part of Essay 1. So, what I have up here right now in front of you is actually a link from your course resource page, and that can be found in the content tab as well, just like you find the other modules. It's labeled course resources. I want to talk about what a response should include, and then I want to talk about 2 kinds of response that will work for this particular assignment before moving into giving you an example of one of those kinds of response. So I have 3 goals. What a response should include, the 2 kinds of response that will work for this particular essay, and then getting even more granular, if you will, drilling down to an example or a model for how you might begin to accomplish this. So here you can see I've highlighted 2 sentences in blue on this page because I think they give you a good idea of what a response should include. Any type or combination of responses should be supported by details, examples, facts, and evidence. Really, we need evidence or specific examples that will support your point. The support can take the form of personal experience, evidence from the primary text, or evidence from other texts, again, depending on assignment. Here, you will not be able to use evidence from other texts, as your assignment sheet lets you know. You will be able to use evidence from the primary text, or at times you can include that editorial idea, if you'd like to. And I'll show you how I did that a little bit in the example I'll show later. So these are the kinds of things you will want to include in a response, of course, in accordance with any assignment. And you'll definitely want to keep your assignment sheet next to you, as I've suggested in the other 2 videos. There are 3 kinds that this site goes through, but only 2 will work for this particular assignment, since agreeing and disagreeing, that kind of response, is usually one that is best accompanied or best accompanies maybe an editorial from a newspaper or an article that outlines a social issue, right? But I do want to talk about interpretive and reflective response with you. So I'm going to open both of those tabs, and I'm going to go to those. So in an interpretive or reflective response, writers focus on a key passage or idea from the text, explaining and or exploring it further. They also might reflect on their own experiences, attitudes, or observations in relation to the idea of the text that they are highlighting. The writer might use their response to consider how the author's ideas could be interpreted by other readers, how the ideas could be applied, or how they could be misunderstood. So I find this one really interesting for our purposes here, since it might be that you pull out a specific tool that Peter and Sam utilize, a tool that is common in documentary or true crime series documentaries. You have that link on the Get the Background handout that takes you to a huge list of really common tropes or techniques that are utilized. So you could pull one out, look at some examples of it, discuss how those examples are perhaps made into satire by the creators. You could discuss how it could be possible for the lazy viewer, the uneducated viewer, the viewer not paying as close attention as you, an educated viewer, have, how that viewer could misunderstand this documentary and why that is, right? So do Sam and Peter do such a great job with mimicking true crime documentaries that it is incredibly easy to see Dylan Maxwell's documentary as truthful? You could go the other way too and discuss how you don't see how there's any way that a viewer, even a lazy viewer, could misunderstand that this is a mockumentary, a satire that is spoofing true crime. So you've got some options here with this one. The analytic or evaluative kind of response analyzes key elements of the text, such as the purpose, the audience, the thesis and main ideas or the argument, the organization and focus, the evidence, or the style. So for example, you could ask yourself, how clear is the main idea? And here, it would not be the main idea that Dylan Maxwell's not guilty. Remember, we've got the mockumentary salsa on our tortilla chip. That is Dylan Maxwell's story, if you're following my analogy from the first two videos. So the overall goal is not to tell Dylan's story. Dylan's story isn't true. If it's fictional, what is the overall goal that our show creators, Perrault and Yacenda, seek to reach? That could be a subject of a response. You might look at some of the evidence and how the authors support that evidence. You could do this either with the overall show, so the mockumentary, or with Sam and Peter's documentary, right? So we do have Sam and Peter creating a documentary, though as viewers of a mockumentary, you understand it to be a fictional one. But you can still analyze either one. There's almost two layers. You could talk about the organization of the show. You could talk about the tone of the program as well. I've read some of your discussion posts in which some of you guys talk about not really being prepared to be engaged or to laugh out loud. You might talk about what in fact did engage you, how were you pulled into the program, and what is funny about this mockumentary. So this one could also take you into ways that the text could have even been more effective. So what are other places where satire could have been employed, right? Again, this would not be an opportunity for you to talk about why they shouldn't have used mockumentary. That would change the nature of the text entirely. Instead, what you might want to focus on here is how to make the mockumentary more successful, because we've got to kind of accept the gift of any text, even though we might not want that gift sometimes, because boy oh boy, we have all read things we do not want to read or viewed things we don't want to view, but we still have to accept that text as it is and not analyze it as what we'd like it to be, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to take you to now in this video for tonight is an example of an interpretive response. So the parts of part 2 of essay 1 in 1102 this summer, whether you do an analytical or interpretive response, you need to have a thesis. So stake a main claim, make a point, right? And then for each of the paragraphs that you have, you'll want to have a topic sentence. That topic sentence should be connected to the thesis, and it should also argue some aspect of the main claim's points. Specific examples from the text, and in this case, you'll be describing or quoting. Let's say you're quoting dialogue. And then you'll want to provide, in your own words, obviously, commentary. Answer how your example helps to prove your topic sentence and main claim. That's always the question you're trying to answer when you're providing commentary or analysis. How does my evidence help to prove my point? Why is my evidence important? So those are the parts that everyone will want to have. Now it'll look different, obviously, for everyone in the response. Since you'll have your own thesis, you'll have your own topic sentences and examples, and you'll be the one using your own words to describe and or quote from particular portions of the text. And of course, you'll write your own commentary. I wanted to give you a model that would help you out a little bit in understanding what this might look like. You would definitely want to have a small introduction here because remember, you're just coming to the end of a summary in part 1, and then you will double space and type part 2, and then return again and introduce. A small introduction, perhaps 2 sentences or so, 2 or 3, focused on whatever your subject is. Here, because my subject is focusing on a tool that Peter Maldonado and Sam Eklund are using, the reenactment, I probably could begin by talking about what a reenactment is, how we typically see them come across in true crime documentaries or even in news programs. So here's my thesis, though, that would come at the end of that introduction. Peter Maldonado and Sam Eklund's use of reenactments provides evidence for Dylan's case, but the humorous content of 2 of them points to the way in which Perrault and Yacenda, the show creators, satirize true crime series and their use of reenactment. So I've kind of got 2 things going on here. I know I want to talk about how Peter and Sam using reenactments provides evidence, right? But I also want to talk about how I found them funny. The humorous content of 2 reenactments points to the way in which Perrault and Yacenda, the show creators, satirize true crime series and their use of reenactment. My topic sentence that would back up this thesis: the retelling of Alex Trimboli's supposed sexual encounter with Sarah Pearson demonstrates both how the young directors use the tool of reenactment and the satire Perrault and Yacenda seek to present in the series. So again, a dual focus here. So the first reenactment, the Alex Trimboli and Sarah Pearson one, demonstrates first how young directors use the tool of reenactment, and second, that it is satire. So it also reminds us that we're watching a satire. Notice how I'm moving into my description portion now, color-coded with purple. Since Alex Trimboli is the only apparent witness to Dylan's alleged crime, Pete and Sam have to test Trimboli's ethos or credibility. To do so, the boys investigate all of his claims, one of which is that he made out with Sarah Pearson, the hottest girl in school, at camp. To figure out if this is a true statement and if they can trust Trimboli, they use digital reenactment to lay out the geography of the area surrounding the dock, proving that there could not have been any eyewitnesses to the hottest girl and dorkiest guy making out. They must conclude, therefore, that it is Alex's word against Sarah's. Now I'm moving into my commentary after describing it. The reenactment, though faithful to Alex's story, is also satirical because it shows figures of Alex and Sarah on the dock while Sarah masturbates Alex. Notice my diction level there. This is an unnecessary inclusion since the geographical terrain and direction that figures are sitting is what is important. Pete and Sam could probably leave what exactly is happening on the dock to their viewer's imagination. Additionally, in a reenactment, it is not necessary to show it viewers can imagine or understand only what they cannot, which in this case is whether the pair would have been visible from surrounding area bushes and buildings. However, since Peter and Sam consistently and somewhat annoyingly seek out the exact truth, they decide to reproduce all elements of the situation, creating slightly uncomfortable yet entirely humorous results in this reenactment. So notice how I'm editorializing here. I'm evaluating, I'm making a claim, I'm responding to a particular technique, and I'm talking about, after describing it, I'm discussing how it works as satire. So what about it is funny? Where do they take it too far, right? So it's a reenactment, but they take it too far, producing the comedy.